I heard the screaming before I even got out of my car. Not loud screaming. Not the kind you hear in movies. This was worse. This was muffled, desperate, the kind of sound a person makes when they've been screaming for a long time and their voice is starting to give out, but they can't stop, because stopping feels like giving up. A sound that hits you somewhere deep in your chest before your brain even processes what it is. I sat in my driveway for maybe 2 seconds, just frozen. My hand still on the gear shift. Engine still running. And then something in me just snapped on and I was out of the car, moving toward the sound before I even made a conscious decision to move. The sound was coming from down the street. From the garage. Her garage. I want to stop here for a second because I need you to understand something before this story goes any further. I am not a dramatic person. I don't exaggerate. I don't do confrontation. I am the guy who returns things to the wrong aisle at the grocery store because I feel bad leaving them somewhere random. I smile at neighbors I don't like. I wave at people who don't wave back. I have spent my entire adult life being the most unbothered, easygoing, conflict-avoiding person you will ever meet. I say this because what happened next was so far outside anything I had ever done in my life that even now, telling this story, it still doesn't feel completely real. I walked fast, then faster, and the sound got clearer with every step. It was coming from the side of the garage, that narrow gap between the garage wall and the fence where nobody ever goes. And as I got closer, I could make out words now, not just sounds. A voice, exhausted, hoarse, but unmistakably real, saying the same thing over and over. Someone please. Someone please. Someone please. I knew that voice. Her name was Camille. She had been cleaning my house for 6 years. 6 years of every other Tuesday, same time, same blue tote bag with the broken zipper she always said she'd fix. 6 years of her leaving little notes if she ran out of a cleaning product. 6 years of her remembering my kids' birthdays without being reminded. Of her staying 3 extra hours once when a pipe burst in my bathroom at midnight. No extra charge, just because she said she couldn't leave me like that. 6 years of her being more reliable, more decent, more genuinely good than most people I'd call friends. I slammed my hand against that garage door and shouted her name. The sound stopped. 1 second of complete silence. Then, I'm here. Please. I'm in here. Please help me. I don't have words for what went through me. I genuinely don't. It wasn't anger yet. It wasn't panic. It was something colder than both of those things, something that settled into my bones and made everything around me go very quiet and very sharp at the same time. I looked at the side door of the garage. Locked. Padlocked, actually, which told me everything I needed to know about what kind of person had done this. I looked around, grabbed a landscaping rock from the flower bed next to the driveway, and I broke that padlock off in 2 hits. The door swung open and the smell hit me first. Hot, stale air, the kind that builds up when a space has been sealed for hours in the middle of summer. And there was Camille, sitting on the concrete floor in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, her face streaked with dried tears, her eyes squinting against the sudden light like someone who hadn't seen it in a long time. She looked at me and her face just crumpled and she started crying again, not the desperate loud kind anymore. The quiet, relieved kind that honestly is so much harder to watch. I crouched down next to her, and I didn't say anything for a moment. Just put my hand on her shoulder, so she knew she was real, and I was real, and this was over now. Then I looked up, because Linda was standing at the door that connected the garage to her house. Just standing there, arms crossed, with an expression on her face that I can only describe as someone who thinks they are still in control of a situation that has completely and catastrophically left their hands. Let me tell you about Linda, because you need context to understand how someone reaches the point of locking a human being in a garage on a Tuesday afternoon and then just standing there like they did nothing wrong. Linda had been the HOA president of our neighborhood for 9 years. 9 years of violation notices for trash cans left out 2 hours too long. 9 years of measuring grass with an actual ruler. 9 years of making grown adults feel like they were 12 years old and in trouble with a teacher who genuinely enjoyed giving detentions. She had this particular smile, tight, controlled, patient in a way that felt threatening, that she used whenever she was telling you something designed to make you feel small. I had seen that smile aimed at every single one of my neighbors at some point. I had always kept my distance from Linda, paid my dues on time, kept my lawn tidy, never gave her a reason. I had 4 years of clean record in this neighborhood, and I was quietly proud of that. If you just stayed invisible, Linda generally left you alone. That was the unspoken deal everyone on this street had made with themselves. But Linda had a problem with Camille from the very first day. First time Camille came to clean, Linda was outside doing that thing she always did, pretending to do yard work while actually just monitoring everyone's movements. She watched Camille pull up, watched her walk to my door, and by that evening there was a handwritten note in my mailbox asking me to provide documentation that my service workers were properly vetted and legally authorized to operate in a residential area. First day, before Camille had even finished unpacking her supplies. I should have fought back then. I didn't. I was new and I was tired, and I made the mistake that everyone in this neighborhood made with Linda at least once. I ignored her, hoping she'd move on. She never moved on. Linda kept folders on every house in the neighborhood, physical folders with notes and photos and dates, building cases on people for years. I found that out later. What I found out that day, standing in that garage looking at Camille on the floor and Linda in the doorway, was that I had been on Linda's list for a long time. And today she had finally made her move. I stood up slowly. I looked at Linda, and I said, very quietly, very calmly, just 4 words. Don't you move. Then I took out my phone and called the police. If you're just joining this story, let me catch you up in one sentence. I just found my housekeeper Camille locked inside my neighbor Linda's garage on a hot Tuesday afternoon, half collapsed on the concrete floor, voice gone from screaming, while Linda stood in the doorway with her arms crossed like she had done absolutely nothing wrong. Now you're caught up. Now let's finish this. Linda did not move. I'll give her that. She stood exactly where she was, arms still crossed, that tight little smile still on her face, watching me call 911 like she was watching someone do something mildly inconvenient that she had already planned for. That smile made my jaw tighten in a way I hadn't felt since I was a teenager. But I kept my voice steady when the dispatcher picked up. I kept it steady because I needed every single word of that call to be clear and recorded and usable. I said there was a woman who had been unlawfully detained and locked in a garage. I gave the address. I said she needed medical attention. I said the person responsible was still on the premises. Dispatcher told me to stay on the line. I stayed on the line. Camille had gotten to her feet by now, slowly, leaning against the garage wall. I moved to her side, and she grabbed my arm with both hands and held on. Her hands were shaking, not slightly, shaking the way hands shake when someone has been terrified for hours and the body hasn't gotten the message yet that the danger is over. She hadn't said much since I found her. Just my name once, quietly, and then nothing. She didn't need to say anything. The concrete floor said it. The padlock said it. The dried tears on her face said everything that needed to be said. Linda finally spoke. I want you to know, she said, in that precise, controlled voice she used for HOA meetings, that I acted completely within my rights. She was on my property without permission, and I have documentation of prior incidents. I turned and looked at her, and something in my face made her stop mid-sentence. Just stop, like she suddenly realized she was reading the room very, very wrong. Linda, I said, stop talking. She stopped talking. The police arrived in 11 minutes. I know because I was watching the time on my phone the entire wait, standing between Camille and Linda, not moving, not speaking, just watching. 2 officers. They assessed Camille first, called for a paramedic unit because of the heat exposure and her elevated heart rate, then turned to take statements. And this is the part where Linda made the second worst decision of what had already been a catastrophically bad day for her. She started talking. She talked a lot. She explained, in great detail, how Camille had been repeatedly violating community standards by parking in an unauthorized spot. She explained how she had intercepted Camille that morning when she arrived. She used the word intercepted like it was normal, like it was a reasonable thing to put in a sentence about another human being. She explained how she had asked Camille to remain on premises while she gathered her documentation, and how she had secured the area to prevent Camille from leaving before the matter was resolved. She called it securing the area. It was locking a woman in a garage in 90-degree heat. The officer listened. Blank face. One question. Did she ask to leave? She was agitated. Yes or no? A beat. Yes. That was the case. She asked to leave. Linda said no. What shifted in Linda's face wasn't guilt. It was strategy. Even then, she was calculating. That told me everything. They didn't arrest her. They cited her. took statements, photographed the lock, told Camille her rights. Then they left. But the silence didn't come back. Neighbors were outside, not gathered, just present, watching. And when Linda walked toward her door, no one looked away. She'd run this street on silence for 9 years. That silence broke when a garage door opened. Camille pressed charges. The HOA meeting filled up. Stories came out. The vote was 9-2. Linda was removed. 8 months later, outside a courtroom, Camille exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since that day. Then she smiled. Small. Real. She still works for me. Every other Tuesday. Same blue tote bag. New zipper. Parks wherever she wants. Linda moved. What stays with me isn't her. It's how close it came to being ignored. Power doesn't survive on strength. It survives on quiet. Don't be quiet.